prison is known for the routine torture of its inmates.
And because they've faced a desperate lack of medical care, they've ended up dead.
What lurks behind the gates of the world's most remote prisons? These remote prisons are infamous for being crammed with people, having awful punishments and unbearable conditions. When you look at these terrible prisons, it shows a dark part of our world. These walls hide a lot of sadness and misery. The people stuck inside are living a whole nightmare. Imagine a place where human rights are completely ignored, and prisoners' lives are at the mercy of some cruel officers who have no interest in their reform. What fate awaits those who end up in these terrifying facilities? 1. ADX Florence, United States of America. Deep in the heart of Colorado, where the wind whispers secrets through canyons and isolation hangs heavy in the air, squats ADX Florence.
Oklahoma's answer was to open H Unit in 1991, located near the Midwest town of McAllister. No one's ever escaped from this institution.
It is a multi-walled cement structured building. It's underground. There's a lot of dirt around the outside perimeter of it.
This hulking mass of steel and concrete, nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, isn't your average prison. Opened in 1994, it wasn't designed for petty thieves or hotheads. It's a fortress built for the worst of the worst, America's most dangerous and notorious criminals. This prison was built to hold 474 people, but it's never been full. This makes your skin crawl. It shows how awful things must be for the people locked up there. ADX throws the rulebook out the window. Forget the crowded cell blocks and boisterous yards of most prisons. Prisoners are all isolated here. They spend up to 23 hours a day locked in small, soundproof cells, similar in size to a walk-in closet. Imagine the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the suffocating silence broken only by the echo of your own thoughts. These Spartan spaces, with just a sliver of a window and concrete furniture for company, become the sum total of your world. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, the crushing weight of isolation slowly squeezing the life out of you. Restricted diets and minimal human interaction add another layer of torment, a recipe for mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and even hallucinations. Human rights groups and mental health experts have condemned these conditions, calling them a form of psychological torture. This prison might not have crazy escapes like some others, but everyone knows it's impossible to break out of. It's the only federal supermax prison in the country, the final stop for those deemed too dangerous or too high profile for any other facility. But behind the cold, imposing facade lies a human cost. Many prisoners endure a life of near continuous solitary confinement, their days revolving around the four walls of their tiny cells. A single 4-inch window offers a glimpse of freedom, a cruel reminder of what they've lost. A few precious hours outside the cell, shackled for recreation, a phone call once a month, a rare visit. These become the desperate attempts to cling to normalcy in a world stripped bare of human connection. ADX Florence may be a testament to human ingenuity in building a supposedly inescapable prison, but the true story lies in the psychological toll it exacts on the souls trapped within. 2. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. Known for extreme overcrowding, appalling living conditions, and a constant threat of violence for the inmates, Mendoza Prison in Argentina is a notorious hellhole. Prisoners suffer from various untreated health issues, made worse by the conditions that reek of neglect. Overcrowding fuels tensions and leads to frequent explosions of violence, making survival a daily challenge inside Mendoza Prison. Furthermore, the lack of legal support leaves inmates without any way to defend their rights or challenge the harsh conditions they face. This situation is a stark reminder of the urgent need for reform. Built to hold 600 people, the prison now shoves in 1,600, cramming as many as 5 individuals into tiny 4-square-meter cells. A horrifying reality. Violence is a constant threat, with abuse coming from both fellow inmates and the correctional officers. Without rehabilitation, programs exacerbates the situation. Medical staff are only called in after an inmate has passed away, which highlights the neglect throughout the facility. The combination of overcrowding, poor facilities, and ongoing violence creates a grim reality for those inside Mendoza Prison. 3. Volgodsky Pyatak, Russia. Pyatak Island houses the country's most notorious offenders. Beyond the mental strain of nearly 23 hours of daily confinement in 2-person cells, inmates are limited to just 2 visits per year. The prison, encircled by the frigid waters of White Lake, offers no hope of escape. The conditions are deplorable. Lacking proper lavatories and washing facilities, inmates live their lives entirely in their cells. Rule violators face even harsher isolation, being placed in a small, dark room for 15 days, with only a metal bucket and a wooden perch. 4. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, California. Operating from 1934 to 1963, Alcatraz, located in San Francisco Bay, was one of the toughest federal prisons in the United States. Its remote location and strong currents made escape nearly impossible. Inmates, including notorious figures like Al Capone, endured harsh conditions in small solitary cells with minimal privileges.
Some of the famous inmates, there's the Birdman, there's Machine Gun Kelly, and Scarface, Al Capone.
The extreme conditions led to severe psychological stress, and several inmates committed suicide or mutilated themselves due to the trauma they faced. The prison was closed in 1963 and later reopened to the public as a museum. 5. Bang Kwang Prison, Thailand. Crammed well beyond its limits, Bang Kwang Prison, originally built for 3,500 souls, now strains under the weight of over 8,000 inmates. This includes many long-term prisoners, and even those facing execution. Conditions are brutal. Harsh labor and terrible living conditions are the norm, with up to 25 inmates crammed into cells designed for half that number. Just imagine the awful smell and how miserable everyone must feel inside. Medical care, decent food, and even basic hygiene are luxuries here. The prison casts a long shadow, notorious for its high number of death row inmates and frequent executions with harsh punishments. No wonder the constant stress takes a toll on the minds of those trapped within. They call it the Bangkok Hilton, a grim joke considering the reality. Bang Kwang, Thailand's central high-security prison for men, embodies everything wrong with a correctional facility. Overcrowding, understaffing, and whispers of corruption swirling in the thick air. Even the criminally insane are locked away here, their first months spent shackled in leg irons, a brutal welcome. Perhaps the most frightening aspect is the sheer number of foreigners serving outlandish sentences. A young British man got caught at the border with only 130 pounds worth of banned substances. Believe it or not, he got a life sentence for it at first. Even after admitting he was guilty, they only lowered it to 30 years. That's the scary truth about Bang Kwang. 6. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison, a hulking concrete monolith squatting in southeastern Turkey, casts a long shadow. In the 1980s and 90s, its walls echoed with the screams of tortured souls, Kurdish activists and political dissidents who dared to speak their minds. Overcrowding was a constant torment, forcing inmates to live in conditions more akin to animal pens than human dwellings. Imagine the suffocating heat, the fetid stench, and the constant jostle for a sliver of personal space. Even basic hygiene became a luxury, adding another layer of misery to their already desperate existence. The whispers of a dark past still linger within Diyarbakir's walls. While some reforms have been implemented, reports of overcrowding and poor living conditions persist, but the scars run deeper than just physical discomfort. Stories of hallways flooded with sewage paint a picture of a place where basic human dignity seems a forgotten concept, and the specter of violence hangs heavy in the air. A horrific 1996 incident, where 10 inmates passed away and many more were injured in a clash with guards, serves as a chilling reminder of the brutality that once thrived within these walls. Diyarbakir Prison may have undergone some changes, but it remains a haunting echo of a troubled past. It stands as a stark reminder of the importance of upholding human rights and ensuring humane treatment for all, regardless of political ideology. 7. Black Dolphin, Russia. Buried deep within the unforgiving Russian landscape lies Black Dolphin Prison, a place where the term tough takes on a whole new meaning. Even amongst the notorious reputation of Russian prisons, Black Dolphin stands out as a brutal outlier. This isn't a prison for the faint of heart. Imagine 16 hours a day on your feet, the unforgiving concrete floor a constant companion. Rest is a forbidden luxury, a cruel twist in a world stripped of comfort. Blindfolds greet new arrivals, a disorienting start to a life where escape attempts are snuffed out before they begin. Strict routines rule the day, with a measly 90 minutes of exercise the only break from the suffocating confinement. Even these moments are laced with tension. Cell searches are a constant reminder of the ever-present eyes of authority. Every aspect of Black Dolphin screams discipline, a desperate attempt to maintain order within a den of predators. 8. La Santé, France. Established in 1867, its walls whisper of a darker time, when public executions by guillotine were a grim spectacle. Back then, La Santé wasn't just a prison, it was a chilling execution ground, forever stained by the final moments of countless souls. But even without the guillotine, La Santé retains its notoriety. Overcrowding chokes the prison, a constant struggle for space and dignity. Imagine the fetid stench in cramped cells, the lack of clean water a constant reminder of the harsh reality. Isolation hangs heavy, punctuated by violence and a desperation that breeds despair. La Santé has housed its share of infamous inmates, political prisoners, and notorious criminals alike. Their stories echo within the walls, a grim chorus of suffering. Despite attempts to reform La Santé, whispers of the past linger. Reports of cramped conditions, inadequate water supplies, and even abuse by guards paint a picture of a facility struggling to shed its dark legacy. Can a prison so steeped in suffering truly turn a corner? Or is La Santé destined to remain a stain on the Parisian landscape? 9. El Rodeo, Venezuela. El Rodeo prison in Venezuela is a different kind of brutal. It's overcrowded, filthy, and doesn't have basic necessities like clean food and water. Sickness spreads like wildfire with so many people crammed together, and medical care is a distant dream. But what truly sets El Rodeo apart is who's in charge. Unlike most prisons, the guards aren't the ones calling the shots. Here, violent gangs rule the roost. They carve out their own territories and enforce their own brutal code of conduct. It's like a twisted kingdom within these prison walls. Any tiny argument over space can explode into a full-blown riot because tensions are always high. The government talks about reforms, but those seem like empty promises lost in the constant chaos inside such prisons. El Rodeo is a prison in freefall, a place where rehabilitation is a cruel joke, and inmates, not officials, hold the real power. 10. Tadmor Prison, Syria. The Syrian desert isn't known for its hospitality, but nestled amidst the unforgiving sands lies a place that chills you to the bone, Tadmor Prison. Built in the 1930s as a stoic military barracks, Tadmor took a sinister turn under the iron fist of Hafez al-Assad, becoming a notorious symbol of political repression. This dark legacy would be inherited by his son, Bashar al-Assad, ensuring Tadmor's place as a stain on Syrian history. Imagine the bone-crushing heat reflecting off the prison walls, a constant reminder of the harshness of this place. But the physical discomfort pales in comparison to the true horrors that unfolded within. Nobody talks about it much, but there's a horrible secret about this prison. On June 27, 1980, a terrifying incident took place. To get revenge for someone trying to kill a leader, around 1,000 prisoners were killed. But Tadmor's story takes a strange turn. Closed in 2001, a flicker of hope emerged that this dark chapter might finally be closed. However, a decade later, the prison reopened, only to be ruthlessly reduced to rubble by ISIL militants in 2015. Though the physical structure may be gone, the ghosts of suffering still linger. The wind whispers through the ruins, carrying the echoes of shattered lives and the lingering thirst for justice that remains unquenched. Tadmor Prison serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human cruelty, a place where the desert sun beats down on a legacy of suffering. 11. Kamiti Prison, Nairobi. Kamiti Prison in Nairobi casts a long shadow. Built in 1955, it was meant to house a fraction of the souls it now suffocates. Imagine cramming nearly 3,800 inmates into a space designed for a mere 800. The air hangs heavy with the stench of overcrowding, a fetid cocktail of sweat, desperation, and neglect. This isn't just a prison, it's a breeding ground for violence and disease. Basic necessities are a cruel joke at Kamiti. Forget proper food, clothing, or even a decent mattress. Here, scraps are meals, rags are clothing, and the cold concrete floor becomes your unwelcome bed. Limited access to medical care condemns the sick and injured to a terrifying gamble. Will their body give out before a doctor arrives? Or will they be another statistic lost to the prison's brutality? Violence lurks around every corner at Comedy. Inmates, both political prisoners and hardened criminals, face a constant threat of assault, sodomy, and beatings. These aren't whispers. They're chilling realities that paint a grim picture of life within these walls. Despite some improvements since 2002, Comedy remains a stain on Kenya's reputation, a place where basic human dignity seems a forgotten concept. The ghosts of neglect and suffering linger within, a constant reminder of the urgent need for reform. Can such an inhumane place ever change, or is it meant to be a place full of cruelty forever? 12. Xinjiang Prison, China. Xinjiang Prison in China isn't a place for rehabilitation, it's a factory of dehumanization. From the moment you walk through the steel gates, your name is stripped away, replaced by a cold, impersonal number. Here, individuality is a luxury you can't afford. Conditions are brutal, a constant test of will. Food becomes a privilege, meted out in meager rations based on your age, the severity of your crime, and even your social standing before you became a prisoner. Forget the comfort of a daily shower. Here, even basic hygiene is a reward, earned with good behavior. The same goes for exercise. A precious hour outside your cell, a chance to stretch muscles cramped from long hours of forced labor. Sleep doesn't bring much relief. Imagine nights spent with your hands rigidly positioned above the sheets, bathed in the harsh glare of constant light. This is the reality of Xinjiang, but there's a twisted logic at play here. While the conditions are designed to break you, there's no death penalty at Xinjiang. Instead, they make you contribute. Grueling labor becomes your punishment, a way to extract some semblance of value from a broken human being. Xinjiang Prison isn't about justice, it's about control, a chilling display of power that aims to crush the spirit as effectively as it confines the body. 13. Rikers Island, New York. Rikers Island. The name itself conjures a grim image, a sprawling complex choked by violence and despair. This New York City jail isn't a place of rehabilitation, it's a pressure cooker of brutality. Imagine adolescents, barely out of childhood, thrust into a world where guards use them as pawns, manipulating them to intimidate and punish their fellow inmates. A twisted system where fear becomes a tool of control. The stories from Rikers are enough to curdle your blood. Strip searches become a degrading routine, physical assault a constant threat. Brutality isn't an anomaly, it's the norm. Isolation units transform from solitary confinement to sensory deprivation chambers, pushing inmates to the brink. The human cost is tragically high, lives extinguished far too soon within these walls. The stench of corruption and neglect hangs heavy over Rikers. Decades of a troubled history have fueled calls for reform, even closure. Advocates tirelessly push for alternatives to incarceration, desperately seeking to break the cycle of violence. They fight for improvements in conditions, for even a sliver of dignity for those trapped within. 14. Evin Prison, Iran. Evin Prison, located in northern Tehran, Iran, was established in 1972. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Evin has become a focal point of international concern due to allegations of severe human rights abuses. These allegations include torture, arbitrary detention, and executions. One high-profile case that garnered significant international attention was the death of Canadian-Iranian journalist Zahra Kazemi in 2003. Kazemi died while in custody at Evin Prison under suspicious circumstances. Her death, along with other documented cases, has fueled ongoing investigations and reports by human rights organizations. These reports detail concerns about the treatment of political prisoners, journalists, and activists held at Evin. The Iranian government maintains that Evin Prison operates in accordance with international law. However, human rights groups continue to call for independent inspections of the facility and for Iran to uphold its obligations under international human rights treaties. 15. San Quentin, California. Built in 1852, San Quentin State Prison holds a unique position in California's correctional system. As the oldest continuously operating prison in the state, its history intertwines with the state's own growth. Founded during the Gold Rush era to address a surge in crime, San Quentin rapidly gained a reputation for harsh conditions and daring escapes. This reputation persists today, with San Quentin known for its outdated facilities, gang violence, and status as California's sole execution site. The prison's notoriety has extended beyond its walls, becoming a subject of fascination and exploration in numerous documentaries, movies, and books. San Quentin stands as a tangible reminder of the evolution of incarceration in the United States. It's present a complex mix of history, violence, and the ever-present debate surrounding capital punishment. 16. Pollsmoor Prison, South Africa. In the heart of Cape Town, South Africa, Pollsmoor Prison casts a long shadow. Built to hold a mere 4,000 inmates, its walls now bulge with a staggering 7,000 souls or more. This grotesque overcrowding is the lifeblood of Pollsmoor's infamy. Imagine a pressure cooker overflowing with humanity, a place where the air hangs heavy with violence and the stench of despair. Disease runs rampant, a silent but deadly inmate within these overcrowded walls. Pollsmoor isn't a prison for the faint of heart. Gang rule reigns supreme, carving out territories and dictating a brutal code of conduct. Violence isn't a threat, it's a grim reality. Imagine the constant fear, the ever-present awareness that your safety hangs by a thread. Human rights groups have documented rampant abuse, their reports a chilling testament to the failures within Pollsmoor's walls. 17. Pitești Prison, Romania. Pitești Prison in Romania gained infamy for its extreme brutality during the late 1940s and early 1950s. This prison, notorious for housing political detainees, became the stage for a horrifying re-education experiment that involved severe physical and psychological abuse. The purpose of this cruel program was to forcefully convert anti-communist activists to the regime's ideology through relentless torture and manipulation. 18. Gitarama Prison, Rwanda. Gitarama Prison in Rwanda disregards the basic principles of incarceration. Initially built for 4,000 inmates, the prison now holds over 7,000, creating unimaginable overcrowding. Hygiene has been abandoned, replaced by a grim mix of sweat and disease. Malnutrition is rampant, with food rations barely sustaining the inmates. This extreme overcrowding turns the prison into a violent battleground where conflicts erupt over the most basic needs. Human rights organizations are outraged, their reports depicting a prison system in crisis. Overcrowding leads to rampant disease, violence becomes a daily occurrence, and basic human dignity is a distant memory. Despite numerous calls for reform, the authorities remain indifferent, leaving Gitarama Prison as a stark example of a system that prioritizes punishment over rehabilitation, a place where chaos and suffering are the norms. 19. La Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. La Sabaneta Prison in Venezuela was never about just locking people up. It was a recipe for disaster. Built for a mere 700 inmates, by the time it closed in 2013, it housed a staggering 3,700, over 5 times its capacity. Imagine the chaos, cramped quarters, fetid air, and tempers constantly flaring. Nearly 200 children even shared this nightmare, their innocence lost amidst the squalor. But overcrowding wasn't the only sickness plaguing Sabaneta. Corruption ran rampant within the prison walls, mirroring the problems outside. The wealthy and powerful inmates somehow secured spacious, luxurious cells, while the rest wallowed in misery. Understaffing added another layer of madness. With only one guard for every 150 inmates, maintaining order became a sick joke. Violence and corrupt practices flourished under this neglect, creating a prison where the system itself fueled the chaos. La Sabaneta may be closed, but its legacy of barbarity lingers. Plans to turn it into a museum raise a chilling question. Can a place where humanity was so blatantly disregarded ever truly be sanitized? Or will Sabaneta remain a stark reminder of a system that prioritized brutality over rehabilitation? 20. Camp 22, North Korea. Camp 22, or Horyong concentration camp, shrouds itself in a veil of secrecy that chills the soul. Nestled somewhere in the remote northeast corner of North Korea, this prison camp has become synonymous with unimaginable suffering. Political prisoners and even their families are alleged to endure a nightmarish existence. Brutal forced labor, physical abuse, torture, and executions a constant threat. The camp's true status adds to the horror. In 2012, whispers emerged from within North Korea, suggesting its closure. A tiny bit of hope popped up, but then things got really bad again. Satellite images hinted at continued activity, and escapees' testimonies painted a grim picture. While Camp the 22nd of May no longer operate in the same way, its legacy of cruelty lingers. The fate of thousands of prisoners remains a mystery, with some reports suggesting they were transferred to Camp 16, another notorious North Korean prison. Grim details etch a horrifying image. Imagine an electric fence, 3,300 volts pulsing with a deadly promise. Add another layer of security barbed wire strung tight, a constant reminder of isolation and despair. Public executions, once a weekly spectacle designed to instill fear, were reportedly moved to a secret location in the 1990s. This shift offered no solace, merely a shroud of secrecy over continued brutality. Camp the 22nd of May be a shadow, its exact state shrouded in mystery. But one thing remains certain: its legacy as a place where human rights are obliterated and basic humanity extinguished continues to cast a long, dark stain. We've explored some of the world's most brutal prisons, places where harsh conditions and unimaginable punishments are commonplace. As brutal prison conditions challenge our views on punishment, how will these systems adapt to a changing future?